Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day and a wonderful week. Welcome to another episode of We Aren't Dead Yet. I'm Emily Armstrong, creator of the ttrpg system Quests and Quarrels, as well as the settings Beckett Build, Culinary Punk, and Elder Space. I'm here with Dazz.
Hello, I am Dazz. I am the creator of the ttrpg Meaty Bones, as well as the worlds of Pangorio and Hypnosium. I am here with Safa.
Hi there, my name is Safa Burnell. I'm a best-selling cyberpunk and mythpunk author and an editor for a small press. I've been in the fiction sphere for more than 15 years, and I'm going to remind everybody today, don't worry, there's always something we can do, because we aren't dead yet.
Oh, and by the way, that picture is sick, the one that you posted. I meant to comment about it, and I
Okay, that remembered. One? The Kate picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that one in about 25 minutes.
It looks great.
I'm getting a rhythm when it comes to these portraits. The thing I didn't do well is the clothes, but that'll come.
That's the same for me. Like, once I got the faces, now I'm able, like, I feel like I have figured out the eye issue that I was having trouble with. And now that that's sorted, I can move on, and now I can focus on the clothes, and you can kind of see the difference if you go back to stuff from last month to the stuff that I'm putting out now. You could tell that I needed to move on.
Oh, did you see the rank pips I did?
Oh, no, I didn't see the, I saw them when you were showing them yesterday, but
I should probably get Dazzy Dazz to look at them. I did rank pip stats, different kinds for officers and enlisted.
Was this the one you guys were talking about trying to get to line up?
Yeah, and you can see I did it in a different way on World Anvil. It's still taking up more space than I wanted, but I'm happy enough. Enlisted ones so that it looks like you just get the basic able seafolk / private one, and then every rank up, you just kind of color in another section because it's cheap and all of that. For the officer ones, there's a silver one and a gold one, and then it goes up and up and up.
I see how this is going. Lieutenant, you don't have a first or second lieutenant. You go right from
No. Yeah, so I have less ranks.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to deal with that complexity on a merchant militia. So
the ensign is usually the butter bar. And then the lieutenant would be it's called a butter bar because they only get one little brass bar. So it looks like a little stick of butter on their collar. I need the butter bars.
I need a butter bar for my butter knights or something.
A butter
bar is the lowliest of the officers. Mm-hmm. That's why they got such an insulting title as butter bar.
I literally copied the way that I did pips from Star Trek, so
I'm fine with this. I was looking at it, I'm like, why does this look familiar with the color coding? Because
Star Trek. Totally Star Trek. I will admit it.
I understand. I was trying. I'm trying to think, what country? No, that's not the country. I'm pretty sure Canada doesn't quite do this. Where does this color coding come? Because it's like, you got so many 3 stars, and I'm like, oh, wait, that doesn't, I know. Where is she getting this? It's like, oh, I know this isn't Ukraine. No, okay, it's a Star Trek. This works. That works. And the enlisted?
The whole point with the enlisted is that they would get one, and then they would just get the stuff to color it in, because the whole point of this is you purchase your commissions in the CGM militia. So if you're wealthy enough, you can have a certain rank. You have to earn certain levels after that, but you can get your initial lieutenant, ensign and lieutenant ranks by purchasing them. And so I wanted to do something where it's gold and silver pips for the officers because they're purchasing those. But with the enlisted, they're not going to spend that money on that. And so instead, it's something that they basically just have that they could color in.
You always buy your insignia once you get promoted. They don't even give it. They'll give you 3 insignias. That's it. If you want more for future uniforms, you have to buy your own, even if you're lowly. And I would say the private, you should have blank. Because that is the most insulting rank to be a private. And when you get demoted, they rip your rank off of you and you go down to a bare sleeve. That's why if you ever watch in the movies where they just go up there and they rip the chevrons off of somebody, They got a bare sleeve, or they'll be walking into duty with the regular shirt, and there'll just be like little stitchery holes where their rank used to. Private is bare sleeves.
I can totally take off the private bear scene thing because too, like I have underneath that all of the DBs, all of the debt reclamation contracts, they start at the private/able sea folk level. So like all the people that are there to cleanse their families or their personal debt, they basically have no rank. They're the lowest of the low. And that's why Max is like, what?
Everybody, every single enlisted starts as a private because you have to be trained in order just to get up to be considered anything useful. So when you're like going through your primary training, everyone's a private, and then you can go from there. Maybe the debt guys don't get out of that, but everybody else.
They have the most basic of basic training. They have zero things that were taught. They basically go through a 2-week period where they're assessed to see whether or not they have value as anything other than a grunt. And then if they seem to have value, then they'll tack on a more extended basic training to their debt. So they still have to pay for it because everything is like to the utmost commercial kind of, it's payment. And so most of the DBs end up in the infantry basically with a gun in their hands going, shoot this guy. And I have in like the different things that Max Allard is different. Like he's like, how many are DBs like me? And, we're the vanguard protecting the Conglom against both the Syndicate and, Haven. By the stunned silence of your gaping maw, I've got the answer. They really go through none of this in basic. Fuck, you really were thrown in with nothing but your skivvies. DBs aren't like you, Allard. You're the only one I've known in my career who reached a rank above petty officer.
Okay, perfect. I do want to make a point here. Everybody who is not a DB and they're in the enlisted, they start off as a private when they are in training. To get out of training, you get to the next rank, and then you're usable. When you get stripped of your rank, and you get knocked down to private, and school has been over, and now you're just a private, that is the most insultingly low rank you can have. It's like being a cadet, but not being a cadet, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I have 2 things to fix. Corporal and Lance Corporal. The more words you give to a rank, the higher it up it is. Lance Corporal should be higher than Plain Corporal.
Okay, I can change that just a sec.
And just so you know, privates are called slick sleeves because they got nothing on their sleeves. And enlisted rank is not on the collar, it is on the sleeves.
Okay.
You do not put enlisted rank on the collars, it has to be on the sleeves.
Okay. I can do that with
like
my uniforms.
Universal, almost exclusively universal.
That'll be easy enough to do with my uniforms, so that'll but yeah, I definitely had the whole like the idea that you purchase commissions as you go forward and things like that. And the commissioned officers, Ramage will explain that gold collars pay for, their extra training. They pay for going to different schools. They pay for, like, they go to they have an almost completely different military experience than the enlisted guys because gold collars come, either they've had investments from childhood or they had the family connections to be able to basically purchase their way into a certain academy. But in order to get into the academy, they still have to have academic and psych evaluations done to make sure that they have the grades for it. So you can't just be like, I'm an idiot and I'm going to buy my way into captain. If you don't have the physical ability to do so, it's not going to work. You're not going to be accepted. You'll be put into a different industry. But Max didn't go through any of that, and he's a lieutenant. So when I do the gold color little zhuzh up on that, he's going to be like, but I didn't buy anything. Why am I here? And that's when Ramage is going to be like, you little shit. Who do you think has been paying for you? Why do you think I'm sitting here giving you this info? I paid for your shit. You owe me that money. I didn't put it on your debt. I paid for it because you're such a good mechanic. You can keep this ship going when practically nobody else can. Like, this the only reason you're not sitting somewhere with an infantry badge on you right now is one, the fact that you failed your weapons tests because you were deplorable with guns. And two, you're actually incredibly useful. So stop being a little shit and start being useful. And Max is going to be like, thank you, sir.
Okay, a couple things I want to clarify. You wouldn't call an ensign when you want to be derogatory. You'd call him a tin pin. I think that would fit perfectly.
Tin pin.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is that a real term, or did you just come up with that off the top of your head?
I came up with that, but
Tin
remember,
pin.
I've been around a variety of militaries.
I know it's still
And this is the
good.
thing we do in all the countries. And so everybody has a term in their own language. And when you meet other militaries, you have a thing where you exchange your unit patches. It's a kind of like an honor amongst us. And we exchange nicknames of the lowly.
Ah, okay.
And these are universal terms.
Yeah.
I love it.
The enlisted will say, well, I'm fucking serving under a tin pin. You know, that type of thing. There's an exchange of the patches, and so everybody tends to buy up a lot of their unit patches when they know they're going to go somewhere or on a trip, and you carry them so that when you meet fellows, you do. It's a whole thing, and that has nothing to do with like the medals you earn. Like you're gonna have like these bars. There's like cloth medals you get that you put on your uniforms, and then you can get the actual. There's actual some of them have pins and stuff, but that's different. But when it's your unit insignia, that stuff like that, that's a patch, or like in some cases, it's a pin. But yeah, so that's why coming up with tin pin was so easy.
It's so good.
It's a universal military thing. I'm serving under a butter bar, you know. God, he's a butter bar, and he won't get his second for 8.
I can't wait to have somebody in like emptiness at the center be like, I'm not going to listen to a fucking tin pin. Like, ah. Yeah, and I think too, like with Allard, they promoted him way too fast to like ensign and then lieutenant, mostly just because he needed to have a work crew underneath him. And they were like, well, we can't have some, slick sleeve going about doing all that. We have to make him an officer, and it being more of a political thing because they're like, he's going to be ordering people around and all this stuff. We don't want the enlisted to think that they can get, well, we have to make an exception of him. And then they are setting him up for a fall because the second he doesn't do his job or he doesn't do well enough, see, we told you, DBs just can't handle this kind of pressure. They're not fit for command. So like it was almost like they were expecting him to fail. They were not expecting him to end up being the one person that Adarastos is like, I will listen to you.
I have the styles pretty much with the different types of one-shots. Tone is my weakness. I would need somebody to really go over tone. What is the tone that the tone of a story? What kind of tone are you trying to portray when you're creating this story? Theme, that type of thing? I mean, other than the basic that you get for games, but I think there could be so much more. And I am very weak on tone and theme. How far to define tone?
Well, how far on the scale of emotions are you? Tone. People do break tone down by genre and by specificity, things like noble core, bleak glow, you've got grim dark, you've got that kind of thing. But really, when you're talking about tone, you're just talking about, how far on the light, happy, fun, or say romantic, or, sort of cozy, easy feeling, all the way down to awful, horrible, depressive, everyone's going to die, horrific, grimdark. Like, how far on the scale of sort of lightness to edgelord are you?
Okay, so I need to kind of work on these types of one-shots because cozy to me is not really setting an entire story, although it can be done in a way. It would be more of a tone. But I can see where some of them are that way. I mean, I have seen ones that are just labeled as cozy.
I think it's a tone and a style. I think that's a bad word for, like, I think because that word specifically is used for, like, a type of setting, but it's also used for a, like, tone.
Well, the use of cozy, like in a cozy mystery, that brings about in the literary world very specific things. So in the literary world and things like that, once you say cozy, you're thinking, okay, this is something that is probably more set up for a feminine market. It is something that is really easy. There's not much tension. It's about, slice of life and comfort. And it's also things like a cozy mystery, like a gentle mystery, like a lot of those BBC shows where they have lady detectives who are not actually police officers. They're the busybody of the village, or they're a lawyer's assistant, or they're a mom who stumbles across a mystery. You never see any bodies, you never see anything graphic. Everything gets resolved in the end, but it's cozy. It's sort of gentle little small town village, and somebody has stolen something that is very dear and near to somebody's heart. Or usually you get in sort of cozy mysteries, oh no, the big corporate guy is trying to buy Mrs. Miller's farm, and we've got to find a way to save it because that farm is a historical farm and it's important to our town. The corporate overlord guy has misrepresented something, la 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 la, and eventually everything's okay in the end. So it's a very specific subgenre.
So I have this blog, Rise Up Comus. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. That is talking about the definition of cozy in relation to TTRPGs. This is a quote: in the same way that horror genre is a bundle of related but different emotions, I think that coziness is actually a series of related things, namely comfort, aesthetic of domesticity, sense of connection to family, community, or nature, and then in its own category, threats to coziness. Put together, coziness can be simply defined as taking pleasure in the presence of gentle, soothing things.
A lot of the times cozy, too, there's no combat. And that doesn't mean that people are just talking their way out of things. It means that the tension of combat isn't there. That's not what it's about. Maybe it's that solo RPG about creating a new alien on a different world, or you're learning how to bake bread through all of these days of going through this solo RPG experience, that kind of thing. It's koslik. It's koslik. It's hygge. It's koslik. It's comfy cozy. It's a warm blanket with a tea or a hot cocoa in front of the fire when it's chilly out, in a beautiful knitted sweater that was knitted by your grandma. It's a sensation. It's a feeling. It's also a genre of the world is very complicated and we need to go back to simpler things. Series such as Redwall and Studio Ghibli films, when you go into the monastery, there's all of the, like, oh, look, it's the guy who's creating a new kind of bubble beverage and this, and like the Redwall Abbey itself, even though violence occurs there, is like, if you think of like little kids being like, oh, look at this art of this mouse in monastic robes that has their feet up by a fireplace and they're sipping tea and eating a hazelnut cake. Isn't it so cute? Like, it's that kind of thing that they're talking about there. Like, Studio Ghibli's not, nonviolent either, but the aesthetic inspiration is still what they're going for with things that are more like pastoral and cozy and kind of games for people that don't want combat, that they just kind of roll their eyes at combat and things like that, which again is not going to be a game that you're used to because that's not the kind of game that you play.
And there are an awful lot of them that end with everybody dies and they were victorious, or somebody was a hero and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at media that sort of mimics one-shots, you can kind of look at the movie Rogue One as one of those kind of one-shots where, yeah, everybody dies in the end, but it was for a heroic sacrifice that saved the world.
That is a very good point. Yes, Rogue One is a Star Wars one-shot. And I love that movie, by the way.
I really enjoyed that one. I think it's my favorite of the new Star Wars movies.
It was the first Star Wars movie I ever actually cried at. It was
Aw.
so good. Because I was so deeply invested in it, and it's like,
Yeah. It was the first time I felt like one of the new Star Wars movies felt like the old Star Wars movies. I was like,
and we were
I get
watching
it.
it in a theater with people. We were watching it on the opening night when it came to where we go,
Hmm.
and we were watching it, and the whole crowd was in on it. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I almost never cry. I never cry at
No, I
movies.
don't
I
get
was
into
crying at
media
this
like
because
that.
but it
Hmm.
was the vibe of the whole crowd. There's something different when you go and watch a movie at the cinema with the whole crowd, and when everybody is invested in the movie and in it, and the emotion just hits you. It's like, I can sit at home and watch it and I won't cry, but I go to the theater and if there's enough people there watching it and invested in the movie, it will bring you out. People were leaving, wiping their eyes, sniffling, the whole 9 yards. It was amazing. It was a group, almost like mass hysteria, but in a mass sadness in a good way. And everybody it was just a moment. And I carry that with me because it was such a moment.
Yeah, I bet.
I miss going to the movies nowadays because nowadays it isn't like that anymore. They lost it after the COVID
Hmm.
thing, and you go back, it's not the same.
Nobody's there. Nobody goes anymore. The vibe isn't the same. The people that are
It's
there,
it's
like annoying teenagers that are throwing shit. Ugh.
it used to be a real thing. You'd go there and you'd get that crowd feeling of everybody
Mhm.
would be invested. Now everybody's on guard or annoyed at something, or their phones are going off all the fucking time. It's like, okay, I will say that none of that stuff ever happens in our tiny towns when we watch movies.
Oh, that's true. I have like a theater that is uh, attended to by multiple towns of people, and the children and teenagers that live there.
But the thing is around here we get the kids and the teenagers. They come and watch, and they're all respectful and behaved. I mean, the little tiny kids, you expect that, but then it's a little tiny kids movie, and what are you doing if you don't expect little tiny kids? But when they get to be, like by the time they're like 8, and they're into watching a little bit bigger kid movies, a little bit, the whole vibe is different. And then I go to any big city and watch a cinema there, and it's like, this sucks.
Yeah, that's what my experiences are like.
It is. So here it's a total vibe. They got like these we got seats. They have really nice bucket seats. They got the cool holders. It's clean. People are respectful in line. People are the kids are running around and and parents are like parents babysitters keeping them in line and getting after them. It's not wild. But you go into it, but every single time I go to a bigger actual city to a cinema, the whole vibe is completely different. It's like a whole different world. I'm like, what happened to the world? From childhood, all the locals around here are like, from childhood you were taught to behave in public. It's so different where I go to urban settings and kids are just allowed to be crazy, uncontrolled maniacs. But where I'm at, it's an entirely different vibe. You don't let the kids run around loose. You don't let the kids go run off and do whatever they want because they might get eaten by a bear. You know. No,
When you get close to the city, like you said, I don't think I've been through like a single movie where there wasn't somebody misbehaving at least like half the time.
I grew up in a small town, which was compared to here, it's big. It was a town of 5,000 people I went to. I had 86 kids in my graduating class, by the way. That's considered big. The town I'm in now, the average graduating size is 12. I mean, this is how small this area is. So and there's still people you don't know because you don't get to know everyone. When you're a kid, you're too busy trying to be friends with your friends that are your age, and you don't really vibe too much. Although I had a broader friend, or at least kids I knew, group because I had a younger sister and an even younger brother. So, and then I had older cousins that I kind of vibed that way a little bit. But anyway, you get that feeling, and you're raised. This is in the day when kids' movies came out. And on Christmas time, every year there was always one Christmas movie where the theater sent every single elementary kid a ticket for free. And then there was a day that the school put off to the side where all those kids would go to the movie theater, yes, and they'd get all the stuff at the theater for free. They were allowed to have a drink, a candy, and a popcorn for each kid. They had the little mini popcorns because elementary kids. So kids could have this stuff. And if they didn't want the candy, they could have the popcorn, or they could have both, one of each if they wanted. And we all went in there and we all sat down. They'd fill it up with all the elementary kids that they could. And then we would go and get our free Christmas movie. And it would be a whole group, and all the teachers were there keeping everybody in line. If you didn't behave, you wouldn't get to see the movie. You'd be taken out and put on the bus, and you'd have to sit on the bus for the whole movie. Kids were the best behaved you've ever seen kids. I mean, not that they acted up all that much, because this was a different era anyway, and a different whole vibe of growing up, but kids were on the ultimate best behavior because they got to see a movie for free that some of them never would get to see because their parents just couldn't afford to take them to the movies, and that's how we all were trained to watch movies as we were kids. And then when we got older and became teens, you no longer got to get the privilege of free tickets once you got out of 6th grade. 7th grade, started your junior high, and 6th grade was like the transition. You're old enough you can get a ticket, but you feel like you're the oldest kids in the theater now, and you're on the verge of, you're a tween, you're at like that 12, 13-ish, whatever age that is, like kind of like on the brink. And it's like, no, it's the last of your childhood, because now you're getting into your teenhood. It was like a clear stepping stone. And so that was our vibe. That is where my love of movies came in. And we watched so many movies that way, because remember, when I was going in school, nobody really owned movies unless you were really rich, like on Laserdisc, because it was really super expensive, because the machines were big, the discs were big, and they were really expensive to make. So you'd end up dropping a chunk of money on them. So only a few people did that. And so and they weren't really all that popular, because the whole vibe was all about going to the theaters. But nowadays, it's lost that. Even here, like when first Star Wars came out, and all that, and I watched it. I watched it like about 8 or 9 times before it left. I used all my money. We had to go and see it every night we could, because there was no other way to see it. Once it was gone from the theaters, you couldn't even go and buy there was no such thing as VHS or anything. There was nothing at that time. Then it started coming out with that. It was either you watch it on the cinemas or you waited for it to come out on TV.
Yeah, I don't think I remember. I'm like crawling back in my memory, but I really think we always had some form. I think we like at least had VHS when I was a little baby, at least. So,
well, there's a time when the VHS first came out, and then you got to give it like about 5 years to become. I would say, when did Blockbuster begin? Because
that's exactly. Yeah.
Because by then it was when did Blockbuster start?
I think because that. Let's see, because we had a Blockbuster card. Expanded internationally through the 90s, 1985. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
There were all little shops like that when it started. When Blockbuster started, it wasn't big. There were a whole bunch of little shops, and this is like my teenage years in high school. We just started that. Nobody had the machines. You had to go and you had to rent the machine and the movie.
Yep. That's what I mean. Like, I think it was by the time that I was around, it was like just something that people had in their houses. Like most people have computers nowadays. It was just like that. So I don't remember a time where that wasn't, like, obviously I remember a time before DVR, but I don't remember a time before not being able to just go rent the movie I want to watch.
And in fact, there was HBO and there was something else on TV. We would sit there. We had these VCRs, the recording ones. We would record the movies off the movie channels.
Yeah, I've done that before.
And because that was the only way to get, otherwise, you buy the blanks. Because you go to buy the movie, it's a lot. But we paid for the movie channels, and then we would record them and save them. And then eventually it got into where, well, now we need to get the real one because they're not showing it anymore.
Since we've hit DVD phase, I personally I was like, no, DVDs are going to be around. We're not going to all upgrade to Blu-ray. I think we're going to stick on DVDs for a while. And thankfully we have.
And with that, all you rebels, writers, and gamers, we're wrapping up another mind-bending episode of We Aren't Dead Yet, your go-to for all things TTRPG and speculative. Stay wild, curious, and keep defying the ordinary. Until next time, hit up WADY at vredamedia.ca/WADY. That's VRAEYDAMEDIA.ca/WADY. Like and subscribe, share with your friends, check out our merch store. We'll see you next week for more news, views, and hullabaloos. So keep the fires burning, the dice rolling, and the pages turning. And remember, there's always something we can do, because we aren't dead yet.